Happy holidays on the last Friday show being released this year. Welcome back to the LordanArts channel. I'm John Lordan, and I really appreciate you joining us for this special Brainscratch update. Today, we're talking about the recently solved case of the Somerton Man, who we now know is Charles Webb. And we're going to do our best to answer some of the most pressing questions still remaining in this mystery. How did he die? Why did they think his calf muscles were strong enough that he may have been some dancer? What was the meaning of the coded messages found in the book that he tore a page from? In short, who was he? Thanks to ABC, the Australian broadcast company, and the Daily Mail, we now have some deeper insights into all of this. So here are the top 7 questions we can answer, at least reasonably, about the Somerton Man, Charles Webb. Number 1, how did they find him? When Professor Abbott and Colleen Fitzpatrick uploaded the DNA information from the hair found in the plaster cast bust of the Somerton Man, they found a match in a man named Jack Hargreaves. They needed to build out his family tree, which was a serious undertaking. It would amount to about 4,000 people. Thankfully, they could drill that down by looking for men, and they were trying to find one in particular that had no date of death. They found their match in a man named Charles Webb and went down his mother's lineage until they found a relative that was alive today that they could DNA test, a distant cousin named Antero Bonifacio. He agreed to be tested, and they found their match. Number 2, who was Charles Webb? Charles Webb was actually born Carl Webb back in 1905 in Footscray, Victoria, just outside of Melbourne, Australia, and he was one of 6 siblings. He grew up in Springvale, likely working in his family's bakery, and as an adult, he became an electrical instrument maker. But in his spare time, he played community football. Now, Australia seems to have several games that they refer to as football, so I'm not certain if it's soccer, Australian rules football, footy, or even rugby, but we now know why his calf muscles were so strong. They even found articles talking about his football activities, including one talking about him being put on the injured list. As an adult, he would marry a woman named Dorothy Robinson in 1941. From the very few details we have on this, though, it didn't seem like it was a great relationship. In 1946, he may have even attempted to take his own life. His wife came home to find him gazing into space, and the house smelled like ether. She found him soaking wet in bed, and he said that he had swallowed 50 tablets. He survived the attempt. He and Dorothy wound up getting divorced. In the divorce papers, Dorothy said that Charles was threatening and moody, and that he didn't have any friends. Number 3, why wasn't this case solved much earlier? It's one of Australia's greatest mysteries and has been for decades. In his later years, both his parents and his brother Roy passed away. And in 1947, he left his home of Melbourne and his wife to go to Adelaide, where his body would eventually be discovered. Basically, no one ever reported him missing, which would have given investigators the critical link that they needed to give him his name back. Number 4. What was with the coded message? Charles loved to write poetry, especially about death. The Rubaiyat, the book that we know he tore the page out of and left in the back of someone's car, also contains poetry about death. We know he wasn't a spy, and I personally believe that the codes found are actually shorthand for poetry, either poems that possibly he liked and he wanted to recite them later, or possibly poems that he had written himself. I mean, the code was written in the back of a book of poetry. Considering that one of the lines has been crossed out in that code, though, I personally lean to it being more of a poem of his, maybe something that he was working on leading right up to the end of his life. Speaking of, number 5, what caused his death? While we don't have a conclusive answer, the autopsy was clear that it was not a natural death. His stomach was full of blood, which suggests poisoning, but no poisons were found in his system. Considering the history we do now know about him with a story about a previous attempt at self-harm, Many experts believe he did actually take his own life on the beach. Why leave the book, take the page, and dump his identification? It seems he's someone that wanted to leave in a way that was as mysterious as he existed. Number 6. Is this all said and done? Not quite. South Australian police still have not confirmed the match. They say that further DNA work is required, and they've given no expected time frame on the completion of that. They say it will ultimately be determined by the coroner. Now, some experts also say that the match cannot be categorically confirmed, basically due to the DNA sample. The hair very likely came from his body, but it's not 100%. People were working on that plaster cast. What if it came from one of them? However, his remains were exhumed, and if they find DNA directly from his body, that could help clear that up. There is still another issue in that the match is to a first cousin 3 times removed. Essentially, the Somerton Man's mother is Antero's great-great-grandmother, and typically DNA matches are done to very close family members like siblings or parents. Also worth note, Professor Abbott's earlier theory that he found and married the granddaughter of the Somerton Man, obviously not correct, but chasing the mystery has brought him a wife, a family, and they kept at it. Colleen Fitzpatrick, who we've talked about on this channel, she has solved many notable true crime cases. She's convinced that they have their man. Finally, number 7. How does his remaining family feel about this? Great-great-niece of Charles Webb, Christy Webb, said there was also some sadness about this forgotten family member. This was a person. He wasn't just a media hit for a little while or an unsolved mystery. He was our family. Of course, I think she makes a really important point. As the details come out about Charles, it seems he's a person that may have struggled to find his place in this world, probably dealt with some severe emotional issues, and ultimately didn't want to be a part of this world anymore. During a time of the year when so many people struggle emotionally, maybe the best way for us to remember and honor the mystery of the Somerton Man is to check in with the people close to us and remind them that this world is a better place with them in it. I hope you can all find the time and opportunity that you need to do a little of that this holiday weekend. Thank you so much for supporting the team here at LordanArts in 2022. We have no videos coming out next week, but there will still be an episode of the Seriously Mysterious podcast coming on Tuesday and Crime After Crime coming on January 1st. I hope that you can join us for both of those. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.